Welcome to second semester. We made it. All right, so we're going to start with Unit 5, and Unit 5 is all quadrilaterals. And so lesson 1 is going to be just the intro to quadrilaterals, and it's going to be our basic definitions. And so that's what we're going to start with. So first of all, by definition, a polygon is a quadrilateral if and only if it has 4 sides. So that's our definition of a quadrilateral. So we're pretty much talking about the whole unit's going to be about 4-sided figures. And we're going to start with talking about parallelograms. And as we go on further, we're going to talk about some examples and non-examples. And underneath the umbrella of parallelogram is going to be rectangle, rhombus, and square. And then underneath the umbrella of a quadrilateral is going to be parallelogram, trapezoid, which underneath that would be an isosceles trapezoid, and then a kite. And so pretty much we're going to be studying all of these in Unit 5. We're first going to start with focusing on parallelograms. Then we're going to get into rectangle, rhombuses, and squares. Then we're going to focus on kites. And then lastly, we're going to talk about trapezoids in the last lesson of the unit. So first, to focus on parallelograms, a parallelogram is a quadrilateral, is a parallelogram. That's our abbreviation for parallelogram. It's a parallel symbol, which is two slanted. Sometimes you'll see books say two upright lines. When we write them out, I write them as slanted lines, gram, so parallelogram. It's just a shortcut. If and only if both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. In order for it to be a parallelogram, both pairs have to be parallel, both pairs of opposite. So a few examples here are, and I know it's parallel if they have the little arrows. The little arrow means parallel. So we have those matching up as parallel opposite sides and the other pair matching up as parallel opposite sides because it's a single arrow. And again, another example, opposite sides parallel. And the last example, we have two arrows meaning opposite sides parallel and then a single arrow. If you look at the non-examples, so this only has one single pair of opposite sides parallel, the other one is not, so that makes it not a parallelogram, and this has no opposite sides parallel, so it's not a parallelogram. Moving on to a rhombus. So a rhombus falls under the umbrella of a parallelogram. All rhombuses are parallelograms because all rhombuses opposite sides are parallel. So a parallelogram is a rhombus if and only if what's special about a rhombus is that it has 4 congruent sides. So if you look at the examples, the opposite sides are parallel. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, so it fits for a parallelogram. But what makes it a special parallelogram is that all the sides are congruent because you see the tick marks. So it's the attention to detail that I always talk about for honors geometry. Notice the attention to detail. So I already know it's a parallelogram because of the arrows, opposite sides being parallel, but now I know that it's a special parallelogram, that it's a rhombus because I see the 4 tick marks. Same example here, opposite sides parallel, so double, double, and then single, single arrows. So opposite sides are parallel, so it makes this a parallelogram. What makes it a special parallelogram is I have a double tick mark on each of the sides, denoting that each side is congruent. They're all equal in length. So again, a rhombus is a parallelogram. A rhombus is a special parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. Non-examples here, these opposite sides are not all congruent. So all the sides are not congruent, and same example here. Adjacent sides are just congruent. Moving on, a rectangle. A parallelogram is a rectangle if and only if it has 4 right angles. All rectangles are parallelograms. So rectangle falls under the umbrella of a parallelogram. A rectangle is a special parallelogram. So all rectangles will have opposite sides parallel, denoted in the picture. What's special about a rectangle is it has 4 right angles. So it's a special parallelogram with 4 right angles. This next picture here, opposite sides parallel, so you know it's a parallelogram. And then what makes it a special parallelogram is the 4 right angles. Here's a couple non-examples. First of all, this is just one pair of parallel sides, so that makes that not a parallelogram. If it's not a parallelogram, then it cannot be a rectangle. This has 4 congruent sides, but again, not 4 right angles, and so on. I'm going to move on to a square. A parallelogram is a square if and only if it has 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So all squares are parallelograms. Technically, all square is also a rhombus and a square is also a rectangle because a square has 4 congruent sides, which a rhombus has, and a square has 4 right angles, which a rectangle has. So a square is everything. Square falls under the umbrella of parallelogram, rhombus, and rectangle. And it's a special parallelogram, it's a special rhombus, it's a special rectangle because it has opposite sides parallel, 4 congruent sides, and 4 right angles. Both pairs of opposite sides parallel, 4 congruent sides, and 4 right angles. And here's non-examples. Moving on to a trapezoid. A quadrilateral is a trapezoid. Notice it's not a parallelogram as a trapezoid because parallelograms are not trapezoids. So a quadrilateral, meaning 4-sided figure, is a trapezoid if and only if it has one pair of opposite sides parallel. We just talked about a parallelogram having both pairs of opposite sides parallel, where a trapezoid only has one. So if you look at these examples, one pair of opposite sides parallel, denoted by the little arrow, one pair of opposite sides parallel, denoted by the arrow. So that's by definition a trapezoid. A trapezoid is not a parallelogram. A trapezoid will never be a parallelogram because a parallelogram has both pairs of opposite sides parallel. Trapezoid only has one. Non-examples, you can see right here. This has one pair of opposite sides parallel, but if you look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided figure, and we talked about a trapezoid being a quadrilateral being 4-sided figure. Lastly, a kite. A quadrilateral is a kite if and only if 2 pairs of consecutive sides are congruent, but opposite sides are not congruent. And so if you look at examples here, first of all, we talked about consecutive sides in the past. Consecutive meaning next to. Another word you're going to see is adjacent. So consecutive means next to, which is also adjacent. So they're talking about sides that are next to each other are congruent. We also say that a kite's a quadrilateral. So you have to have 4-sided figure. A kite is not a parallelogram. Consecutive sides are congruent, meaning sides next to each other are congruent. So these ones are next to each other, so they have a tick mark as congruent, and these bottom ones are next to each other, so they are congruent because it says 2 pairs of consecutive sides. So here's one pair, and then here's another pair of consecutive sides being congruent, but opposite sides are not congruent. And so technically these would be opposite each other. And notice we have 1 tick mark versus 2 tick marks, so they are not congruent. Another example right here, consecutive side, 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark. Those sides are next to each other. They are consecutive. And it says 2 pairs. So these are also consecutive, double tick mark, double tick mark. So 2 pairs of consecutive sides, congruent, but opposite sides not congruent. Opposite sides not congruent. So if you look at this one, this non-example, well, these are consecutive sides, sides next to each other. They're not congruent, and you need them to be congruent, so that doesn't work. And then for this one, it says 2 pairs of consecutive sides congruent. So technically, these are consecutive sides congruent. These bottom ones are consecutive sides congruent, so that works. But opposite sides not congruent, and these sides are opposite, and they are congruent. So that's why that doesn't work for this as a non-example, because these opposite sides are congruent, and for a kite it says opposite sides not congruent. We're going to kind of continue on in practicing some more of the definitions. I would definitely plan on having note cards, and just really the more you know the definitions, the better off this lesson will go for you, and the better off Unit 5 will go for you. You need to know the definitions very, very well, and we're going to be learning properties of all of the terms that I just went over. And so if you have note cards, we can just kind of add properties to them, and you can kind of study them from there. So we'll work on lesson 1 practice together and kind of dive into this a little bit more. All right, thanks so much.